What's up, Montana? Welcome in. Happy Monday. What a great Monday to be alive. So often in life, you know that there's certain things on the horizon. That's what makes sports great, is the scheduling of things are so concrete. You know when an event is going to occur. So often in life, those events fail to live up to the hype. Not so this weekend. Western Montana, the center of the football and sports universe around the great state of Montana. What a fun weekend it was. And what a fun show we have lined up for you today. If you haven't heard, we got all sorts of state champions from across Western Montana, including the Sentinel Spartans at the Class AA level, the Hamilton Broncs at the Class A level, the Florence Falcons at the Class B level, the Thompson Falls Blue Hawks at the Class C 8-man level, and then we can't leave out the 6-man champions, Floyd Lake, and then at the collegiate level, the University of Montana, state champions once again. I know a lot of people in the rivalry hate when they call it the state championship, but it is. That's what it is. It's a reunion of people from across the greatest state in the United States, and it was a phenomenal afternoon at Washington Grizzly Stadium. I don't care which side of the rivalry you're on. I know there's a lot of Bobcat people right now licking their wounds, a lot of Grizz people right now trumpeting the triumph that was a 29-10 victory over Montana State for Montana. But the result aside, and I'm going to get into what I learned from Coach Mike Kramer last week, because I do think it was incredibly pertinent and important as well. But besides that, the execution of the event, the spectacle that it was, the storylines that came out of it, and the energy that existed throughout the entire state of Montana over this last weekend was awesome. Every single sporting event, every single game that ever exists has a winner and they have a loser. The agony and the ecstasy, right? I was standing right in the middle of Missoula County Public Stadium on Friday night thinking of this. On one side, I'm getting hugs and daps from every single Sentinel kid. On the other side, there's a bunch of Billings West kids that are crying their eyes out. That's why we love sports, is the emotion of it. But sometimes the result gets in the way of all the good things that come from it. Every single athlete that participated this weekend deserves a ton of credit and they have a lot to be proud of. And everybody that engaged in all of the energy that was created by the awesome fans for all of these different sports and all these different teams, they deserve a lot of credit as well. So we'll get all the way into it, get things started off here on Nuanez now with the Montana Football Hour, like we do for the first hour of each and every Monday show. And unfortunately, our good friend Marty Morningway, Coach Marty, he's under the weather. He's got a little bit of a stuffed up, so he's going to not be here this week. He'll be back next week, but that's okay. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about. So we're going to talk rivalry game all throughout. My good friend Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, in studio with me. Both the result that was at Washington Grizzly Stadium on Saturday, plus some of the other results from around the state of Montana, and what it means going forward now, because the dust is settled and it's time to buck back up. Doesn't matter if you're the Grizz or the Bobcats. Now you got a playoff run to go concentrate on. So as great as the event was, as disheartening as the loss might have been, there's a lot to play for still for both of these schools. So we get into all of that and then continue to just talk about the playoff bracket with Andrew Houghton at the top of the hour. And then excited for this, Dane Oliver and the defensive coordinator for the Sentinel Spartans, Mike Matz. They're both going to swing by about 5:30 as well. One other PSA for the rest of the week. No Nuanez now after today. Got to take a little time off. If you haven't noticed, we've done Nuanez now every weekday for the entire duration of this year. And my boss and the powers that be said, hey, there's only like 5 weeks left of the year, and you got 3 weeks of vacation, so you got to leave. You got to get out of here. So no Nuanez now the rest of the week. But I did not want to take this Monday off because we got so much to get to. Riley, thanks so much for being here, man. How you doing?
I am doing great, Coulter. I think the voice for all of those out there, it might be on the mend a little bit. It's been
oh my gosh, right?
It was a long day Saturday, and then after that,
I can't talk at all. I called somebody this morning. They're like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know. I just talked for 14 straight hours. I have no juice left in my voice."
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. You put the emotion into what that game meant, and oh my gosh, it's incredible across the board. Then for me, it was rally time to get ready for basketball that night against Omaha.
You're a machine, man.
It was a heck of a day, but what a weekend. What a great weekend for the University of Montana. Everything that you said, I echo. We love sports. We missed it so much in the last year, and it all kind of came to a head this last weekend with 5 different state champions being crowned, and then the Grizz beating the Cats, and I know we're going to get into the ins and the outs of how it happened, why it happened, the effects that are going to happen down the road, the playoff bracket, which I think creates a lot of conversation.
Oh, man.
Wow. I mean, wow.
See, I've been foreshadowing that the Big Sky was going to get slighted in some form or fashion. I was wrong. They got 5 teams in. I was right. They did crazy stuff in the bracket.
What in the heck? I mean, I'm looking
Every Big Sky team got a bad draw. Every single one.
There's not one good draw.
Every Big Sky team got a bad draw.
Yes, and I would say 8 of the 10 best teams in the country are on the one side of the bracket.
Absolutely.
Which is mind-blowing in itself. I know there's a lot of upset people in Cheney, Washington right about now when you come down to the seeds.
Yep.
And East Tennessee State getting one over the Eagles. I mean, every result that had to happen. We have so much to dive into, but the short version of the summary is what an incredible weekend. I think through a lot of the calls, if you heard the highlight video or anything, it was kind of an out-of-body experience
no kidding.
at times. And I think that atmosphere at Washington Grizzly Stadium kind of created that for all of us, whether it was in my chair, your chair, anyone else that got to experience that Saturday.
If you want to listen to this show somewhere besides the traditional radio, go to our station website, 1029ESPN.com. Click on Listen Live. If you don't have SWX or you're not able to tune into SWX, you want to watch us, you want to see our pretty faces, go to the YouTube channel, Nuanez. We'll get you there, and you can watch all the stuff on YouTube as well. And congratulations to our winners for our Big Fall giveaways. Our good friend Pat just swung by, picked up his Traeger grill. He's pretty excited, and we'll get around to the other person getting theirs as well. But it was a fun afternoon on Saturday, so let's dive into it. First of all, I'll take you through my weekend. This is the Montana Football Hour, presented in part by Stockman Bank. Stockman Bank invites you to experience the Stockman difference. As a family-owned community bank with locations throughout Montana, Stockman Bank is committed to enriching the lives of Montanans and helping our communities succeed. Got out of here on Friday. I needed to finish up 3 features to get them ready for our opening Saturday. Basically, we wanted Skyline Sports to look, just like a game day insert, but on the internet webs. And so I got home, and I had to pound out a story, and then I ran down to Missoula Sentinel. And the way that game went down, it was 15. I didn't get there till right before halftime. It was 15-6, pretty good slugfest. And then Sentinel just absolutely took off. Onside kick to begin the second half. Then they go to then they get a house call right after that. 2 plays later, Easton Ledbetter scores like a 50-yard touchdown, and so now they're in control. Then West panics a little bit. They go for it on 4th down within their own territory, and Sentinel gets a stop. And then they come down, and they go for it on 4th down. And the big quarterback, which was almost symbolic of things to come on Saturday, Zach Cruz, the University of Montana commit, trucks a West defender in the hole, converts the 4th down. They score 2 plays later, and all of a sudden they're off and running. Sentinel, a 35-6 victory over Billings West for a 21st consecutive victory and a second consecutive Class AA state championship. Meanwhile, then the success for teams from the West continued. Hamilton finally snaps the streak. They've been in the state championship game 3 times in 5 years. This time they get it done. 21-7, they beat Laurel. On the road against the defending state Class A champion. So congratulations to Bryce Carver and the Hamilton Bronx. The Class B level, Florence was untouchable. It was not even a competitive game this year. They won the state championship 40-8 over Big Fork. So a resounding victory for them. And then once again, Thompson Falls and Floyd Lake take your 2 Class C championships. But I was up pretty late Friday night getting all the stuff ready to go. Then I wake up Saturday. And out-of-body experience is the right way to say it, because the narrative around these 2 programs coming out of 2019, which was one of the most unlikely results we've ever seen in a rivalry game. The first time in my 15 years covering the Big Sky in which the Bobcat Grizz rivalry game resulted in a blowout in which Montana State won. It was the first time that had ever happened in my career covering it. But then the next 2 years happened that include the cancellation of all the sports and the pandemic and Jeff Choate splitting and all these different storylines. And it was almost as if we put all of the games leading up to Saturday's game a notch below where we normally would for a regular season, because the narrative around the state forever was a collision course. We're marching toward this ultimate matchup between 2 powers. And then we finally got it. And so the anticipation, I was like having an out-of-body experience as well during our pregame show, just letting it rip. It was almost like somebody else was speaking for me because I just had it all in my head. And then you get to Washington Grizzly Stadium. from the moment Jace Lewis walked out of the tunnel doing his best Ray Lewis impression, to the moment that the F-15s flew over the stadium, to the moment that the student section was basically falling out of the stands. They were so crazy and wild and jacked up, to the opening kickoff to Junior Birkin's 74-yard touchdown on the second play of the game. It was among the greatest energies I've ever felt in Missoula and at Washington Grizzly Stadium. And again, there's so much to be gained from sport that has nothing to do with the final result. And what I thought we saw on Saturday was the engagement of our state and our community, and one of the great spectacles you could ever see. And again, I think that the win or the loss of the event is so far down of what made that whole afternoon great. And I know there's a lot of people that are upset that Montana State lost that are listening to this show, but I would say take it for what it's worth, which is an impassioned football game that is displaying some of the most talented young people that we have in the state of Montana. But more importantly, the coalescing of so many different people from so many different communities coming together to celebrate what we identify as part of our identity as Montanans. And I think that's the thing that made Saturday so special. So I thought it was great, though, watching the highlight video, because I know you well enough and I listen to enough of your calls that you're such a pro. You have such a great style. I never heard you as excited as I heard you on the 74-yard touchdown, man.
I think the emotion took over, right?
My brother said he couldn't even take pictures because his camera was shaking because the venue was so just completely off the chain. It was unbelievable atmosphere in Missoula on Saturday.
I have heard that from a couple of people that have listened to me over the years. And after watching the highlight video back and just kind of trying to absorb what happened, I'd agree with you. And I think that there's a couple things there. The emotion of the game when you have so much buildup. I mean, you do the same thing, Skyline Sports MT, all the content you produce, right? I spend a ton of time putting those boards together and just locking into this matchup. And when you're invested in a program as well, you know how much it means. And that's where the rivalry aspect came into play here. It had been over 2,100 days since the Grizz had beaten the Cats. This was the game. No matter what Montana State was going to be coming into this game, this was the year that Montana had to turn the tide. Period. They had them at home. Yep. They thought they had a good team. Didn't matter all the injuries they had through October. Yep. The lead up to this year was at the end of this is the year the rivalry has to flip. Well, Montana State tried to wreck the script by winning 9 in a row and thinking, are they the better team here? And I think that was a challenge for this Grizzly team. We talked about it a week ago on this show. Kind of that underdog mentality, but more than anything else of no one believes we can do this. Sure. And there was 4 years of frustration kind of built up in that game for the team on the field. For me in the call, absolutely. I would say 4 years of emotion. And when they popped the lid off that place, and I think that the half hour that you just described well, from the student section to the flyover to the national anthem, all of the goosebumps that you get. And then on the second play of the game to have that, the longest play from scrimmage this year on an offense that maybe their biggest Achilles heel is they haven't been explosive. Yep. Well, that defined explosive. And from there on out, it seemed like, and I'll be careful with the word here, the route was on, but in some ways it kind of was from that second play on because Montana was the one that had Montana State on their heels.
Montana Football Hour is presented in part by Brett's RV and Marine. Brett's RV and Marine is proud to be the largest of all Montana RV dealers. They've been family owned and operated for more than 50 years. So swing in 4800 Grant Creek Road and start your next adventure with the premier RV dealer in Montana. I thought that this game, coming into the game, you could talk about the league's leading rush offense versus the league's leading rush defense. You could talk about this team's linebackers against that team's linebackers, or this team's offensive line versus that team's defensive front. There's a bunch of X's and O's matchups. When you put it on a docket, if you were objectively analyzing it, it was basically checking boxes on both sides. Both teams have elite talent, particularly in certain areas. I thought there was no real crazy mismatch for either side that they could exploit. I thought that it came down to two factors. And I said this coming into the game. I thought those played out exactly how we thought they might. Everybody kept asking me to make a prediction. I did not make a prediction, but I gave a bunch of the Bobcats will win if, and the Grizz will win if. I did that on radio hits across the Northwestern United States all week last week. I said the Bobcats will win if the members of the team that are new to the rivalry settle in and don't get overwhelmed by the moment. Specifically, head coach Brent Vigen and his new coordinators, and specifically Matt McKay, the quarterback. Because we've seen previously McKay have the ability to melt down in games, and none of the games that they'd played before were anywhere close to the magnitude of the intensity of the environment like they did in Missoula. Said the Grizz would win, not if they just seized momentum, but if they could seize momentum and then carry it. You and I have talked about this every Monday for 10 weeks in a row. Bobby Hauck's football teams play a momentum-based style. The Grizz have had moments in every single football game they've played this year in which they seize momentum. They have not been able to carry it at times. The last month they have, and on Saturday, they seized momentum on the second play of the game, and they seized the momentum into then suffocating Montana State the rest of the afternoon.
So well put on both sides, because we thought coming in, okay, what could be X factors one way or another? For Montana, they needed to jump out in front. And I go to a stat that we looked at, and you followed the Cats all year long.
Yep.
You know this was a team that didn't trail by very much.
Nope.
But we also know they weren't built to play from behind.
It's a very similar narrative for both sides, right?
Absolutely.
Both sides want to let their defense just run roughshod over you, but it's a lot harder when you don't have a lead. Both teams absolutely built to play with leads, no question.
Two numbers that were fascinating to me in the prep on this. There were 600 game minutes that the Cats had played leading up to this game, right? 10 games at 60 minutes apiece. How many minutes do you think they had trailed?
4.
50.
Okay.
50. But that's still
I really wasn't even trying to be exaggerating when I was really thinking about, like, they trailed like the second half of the fourth quarter in Wyoming, and I was not at a Bobcat game the rest of the year in which they trailed that I can recall.
They were winning most of that. I think Eastern went back and forth.
They were down 13-7 early in the second quarter against Eastern. That's right.
But 50 out of 600 minutes. And then I'll get this one to you. What was their largest deficit of the year they had to play with?
1 touchdown?
6 points.
Yeah, 6 points.
Eastern
13-7 at the beginning of the second quarter against Eastern Washington. That's
Bingo.
Right.
Well, guess what? They trailed by 7 or more for the final 59 minutes of that game. And they're not built to play from behind, number one. You put the emotion, the energy, everything in between. This is not a knock on Taylor Housewright. But I looked this up in prep, too. I thought this was fascinating.
Yep.
When Taylor Housewright was born, Kent Baer was the defensive coordinator at Cal. That's the matchup.
That's right.
I mean, right there in and of itself, trying to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, when Freddie Banks was born, Montana State's defensive coordinator Tim Rosenbaum was playing for the Arizona Cardinals.
Bingo. I mean, right there. I mean, you knew those X factors would come into play a little bit, and it was just a microcosm of everything. If you're a Cap fan and you try and script out the worst case scenarios, all of them happened in the game on Saturday, and it was this steamrolling effect of momentum.
I thought that there was a lot of different elements that went into this. Obviously, this game, so often the narrative coming out of it has to do with energy, emotion, and because it is a gigantic part of this game. Motivation, a lot of the intangible elements of football are always part of the narrative of this game. Let's talk about the tangible elements of this real quick. It is Montana Football Hour here on Nuanez now, ESPN Radio. From a tangible element, the story of the Grizz season for the majority of the Big Sky Conference season was how hurt Montana was. Tangibly, Montana was back at least closer to being at full strength. I thought Dylan Cook being ready to go was big. He had missed the previous 2 games as senior right tackle, a guy from Butte who had a lot to play for. And I think Brandon Casey has a lot of potential as Montana's right tackle or left tackle or whatever. He's going to be a good player. He's actually, I think, going to be a very good player. But there's a huge difference between having a fifth-year guy and a first-year guy, especially when you have to go against guys like Daniel Hardy and Amandre Williams, which, by the way, although Montana State got run over on Saturday by the momentum of the moment, I thought there were certain elements in which the Bobcats played tremendously well. None of those happened to be on offense, though, and that was a huge issue for Montana State. But other tangible elements of this game, I thought Cam Humphrey played inspired at quarterback for Montana. I think that he really has turned a corner the last month of the season. I think he learned a lot while he was sitting on the sideline because I think he's made adjustments to the way he operates the offense. I thought that defensively, though, I thought that Jace Lewis continues to play the best football of his career, which is such a huge boost for Montana. I also thought that even though it's probably not going to show up in the stat sheets or the awards, I know Robbie Hauck was the National Player of the Week 2 weeks ago. I thought Robbie Hauck played his best game of the year on Saturday as well. And it's not surprising given what it means to those guys. But then on the other side of this, Montana State, not having TJ Session at right tackle hurt Montana State more than I expected because they did not make the move I expected them to make.
I was surprised.
I thought they were going to bump Taylor Tuiasosopo out to right tackle as they had against Idaho State earlier this year when Session was out. Was it Idaho State? Maybe it was. TJ Session
I
had been
believe it
hurt.
was Idaho State.
TJ Session had been hurt earlier this year, and Taylor Tuiasosopo had bumped out to tackle.
One start at right tackle.
One game, yes. I expected that to occur again. Two reasons, because I thought you could hide guys at guard a little bit better, especially in Montana State's offense. And the guys that would be the next guys up at guard would have been older. Montana State went with Rush Reimer, his first career college start. He's a true freshman at right tackle. That's an impossible situation to be in. I thought that was a grave error, coaching-wise. I did. I thought that was a grave error that Montana State had. And then the other tangible factor I think worth mentioning is that Isaiah Fonse certainly was not at full health, you could tell. But Montana also seemed more than intent to try to make it as difficult as possible on Montana State's potential All-American running back.
Isaiah Fonse, until the middle of the fourth quarter on that final drive for them, his longest run of the day was 5 yards.
Right.
He averages 6.5 a carry.
Exactly.
That was fascinating to me to find out. I mean, Bobby Houck said this all year as they've went through their injury troubles. No matter how good our freshmen are, they're not going to match up against another team senior.
That's right.
And I think that's what you have Rush Reimer going up against.
O'Connell.
Right.
Or Joe Babros, Justin Belknap.
Those are 6th, 7th year seniors.
Totally.
Patrick O'Connell, a 5th year junior. I mean, the experience was just not going to match up. I'm curious. Because you are the line wizard as far as what you watch, because you can watch things that are different, at least from me and a lot of other fans. Because we knew the narrative the last couple of years, right? The Grizzlies got pushed around up front, specifically in the rivalry game.
Yep.
How do you think that matchup went out throughout the course of the game? Because it looked to me that Montana obviously held their end of the bargain. I think Dylan Cook trying to neutralize Hardy was massive in this game.
The reason that the offense that Jeff Choate, particularly the last 2 years when Matt Miller was the offensive coordinator at Montana State, the reason it gave Montana so many fits, you always hear about opposing coaches when they're playing Montana talking about their offense not seeing ghosts because there's so much pre-snap, post-snap movement. You're whiffing, you're blocking the wrong guy, you don't know where the pressure's coming from. Jailbreak, multiple guys running free. Well, Montana State also made you see ghosts with their offensive movement, the pre-snap stuff, the gap scheme stuff, the way that they move their guards around. It was truly, if you could design the worst offense to run the Grizzly defense against, it was Montana State's former offense. That's not the case anymore. Montana State's run game, while absolutely prolific, is nowhere near as creative as it was the last couple of years. Part of that's because they simplified things because they got the bell cow. They got the dude where you can just give him the ball 30 times, he gets 200 yards. So you don't need to have 23 different guys getting carries like they did in 2019. That's a real statistic. 23 guys carried the ball in 2019 for Montana State. But also, I thought that what it really comes down to, we talked about this all season long as well, the Grizzlies, they do what they do on defense. There's not that many adjustments or things that they can check to. They just need to be one step ahead of you and then just absolutely avalanche you. And you know who's seeing ghosts more than anybody?
Matt McKay.
Matt, I watched the game again last night, at least a part of it. By the way, it's so annoying that I can't find this thing archived anywhere. I was like watching the replay as it was being played on the TV, but I couldn't even record it. Regardless, we're not going down that road. But I did watch about 2 hours of it again, and there's multiple throws where Matt McKay wasn't even looking. He's preparing for the hit that he's like wincing so hard that he's just throwing it. So I think it's twofold. One, Bobby Houck was asked 3 different ways about the diversity of Montana State's offense because Lance McCutcheon came in the game as the leading receiver in the Big Sky Conference. We're going to get into some of the logistical and schematic changes that Montana made here in the second segment, but Bobby Houck doubled down multiple times. He said it to me. He said it to you. He said it to everybody. It starts and ends with their run game. He didn't even address the pass game. He didn't address McCutcheon because if you take away that inside stuff, there is no room over the top. And so McKay was just letting it fly because he knew that the pressure was coming. But I thought the fact that they could put so much pressure on him and completely negate anything that Montana State can do in the trenches, anything they could do with Afonso, healthy or not, it eliminated basically all of the continuity of Montana State's offense. And they went from a team that looked pretty good offensively to then the last little while, not very good, to Saturday, non-existent.
Non-existent and not a completion over 20 yards, and that came at the very end on that final drive for them. And I know we're going to get into this individual matchup more, but the Grizzlies' decision to put Justin Ford exclusively on Lance McCutcheon turned to being a game changer.
Yes, it did.
And they absolutely were going to dare Matt McKay to throw. And I give Bobby Houck a lot of credit. And we're going to talk about this, too, with maybe the change in mindset. It wasn't old Bobby Houck as far as disparaging them at all. Everything was complimentary on Montana State. Yep. But at the same time, we all knew it. They wanted to make Matt McKay try and beat him. Dare Matt McKay to throw and try and beat him. At one point, he was 4 of 11 passing for 22 yards. When they become one-dimensional, it was a different story. And it's just crazy how the individual matchups worked out. And Matt McKay, I wonder, I was surprised, honestly, that he came to the post-game press conference as well, because you could just tell probably middle of the third quarter, waving the white flag a little bit. I mean, once that blocked field goal happened, and you could tell it too. You could just see it in his eyes. I mean, he didn't want any more in that game.
Yeah, I mean, moments in the game to go through too. By the way, I thought that the key plays in the game were Junie Bergen's 74-yard touchdown on the second play of the game. Then the fact that Montana won the field position battle to such an extent that it was almost like they were playing arena football. I mean, the football was only on half the field. Like, I got a couple texts from people that were sitting in the north end zone saying, I'm not getting the action down here. Nothing's going on. Because both the huge Grizz plays, Bergen's 74-yard touchdown and Jace Lewis's, I guess we'll call it forced fumble on the fake field goal by Montana State, resulted in Justin Ford's long touchdown. Both those right into the south end zone. But those were the two key plays of the game. But underrated how much the domination of the field position, which then kept the game on one side of the field, which then set up Kevin Macias for 5 field goals. That was the thing that kept Montana State at bay.
Wasn't it fitting, too, that it came down to a lot of special team stuff?
For sure.
I mean, the things that you can't really equate. Junior Bergen being the punt returner, that was kind of the surprise that was going to be unveiled, and it turned out to be a huge weapon. And talk about the north end zone. The one time where they certainly made the impact was when the Cats were driving initially. It was 3rd down and 2 at the 5-yard line.
Yep.
And a team that commits 4 penalties per game is all. I mean, that's minuscule.
Yep.
Back-to-back false starts, settle for a field goal. That was a key sequence in the game as well where, if we're going chess match trying to match pound for pound, that could have been a big moment in that game too.
Montana Football Hour, presented by Stockman Bank. When you bank with Stockman Bank, you receive personalized custom service. Stockman Bank helps blend traditional Western values with modern conveniences and state-of-the-art technology. They provide time-tested products and services from people who truly care about you and your financial success. No matter what side of the rivalry you're on, what happened on Saturday was a good thing. Why? We'll tell you more right after this. Nuanez now. Why build a work history at a job when you can build a future in your own business? Westpac Wealth Partners is looking for entrepreneurial-minded people who are ready to take their future into their own hands. Nick Tabor and his associates provide clients with financial tools and tested solutions for navigating this complex financial climate. Westpac Wealth also has a work culture that has been recognized as a best workplace in Fortune magazine. If you're ready to start building a business in a long-term career, apply at westpacwealth.com. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC. Buying or selling a home can be an intimidating task. Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team of Windermere Real Estate are here to make you feel comfortable no matter where you're at in the process. The official realtors of Grizzly Athletics have more than 4 decades of experience in Western Montana. Brent and his team can not only find you your perfect home or buyer, but they can also teach you about the great city of Missoula and its tradition-laden sports teams. The Wahlberg team works as a family to help fulfill your real estate needs all over Western Montana. If you need help with residential, land, investment, or commercial, give Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team a call today.
The biggest shopping of the year is right now during Bob Ward's amazing sales for Black Friday. Get in early from November 18th through the 23rd during our pre-Black Friday sale. It's like Black Friday for 6 straight days at Bob Ward's. We've extended our shopping hours and stocked the store with winter gear, apparel, hunting, fishing, camping, athletics, and more. Plus, we offer curbside pickup and online shopping with in-store pickup. Amazing sales for pre-Black Friday at Bob Ward's from November 18th through the 23rd. Bob Ward's, Sports and Outdoors, a Black Friday shopping tradition.
Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community, and they want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. When it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan, Holloway, and Miller today. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller, your Montana attorneys.
This holiday season, share the joy of style with a gift from Compass Barbershop. At Compass, you'll find high-quality, reasonably priced products, made in Montana beard oils from Beard Mountain and Foster's Finest, bona fide pomade, beard brushes and washes, everything you need for holiday gifts. Or stop by for a Compass Barbershop gift card. From precision cuts and beard services to shaves and facial waxing, Compass Barbershop has it all. Find your way to Compass Barbershop on the Hip Strip. Open 7 days a week with convenient online appointments at compassbarber.com.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
One rivalry streak ended and another winning streak continued as Montana smashed its rival in Missoula for the first time in close to a decade on Saturday afternoon. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Junior Bergen scored a 74-yard touchdown on the second play of the game, and the Grizzlies were off to the races in the 120th rivalry matchup against Montana State at Washington Grizzlies Stadium. A stadium record 26,856 were ignited as Bergen, a Billings senior product who originally signed with MSU, opened up a contest which turned into a rout. Montana stuffed the Bobcats from start to finish, allowing the number 3 team in the FCS to gain just 204 yards while rolling up 4 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. When Captain Jace Lewis came off the edge and forced a fumble on a fake field goal attempt by MSU, a play that led to Justin Ford scooping and scoring from 56 yards out, it was bedlam in the Garden City as number 7 Montana rolled to a 29-10 victory that certainly vaults the Grizz to a first-round playoff bye. The victory is Montana's first in the rivalry since a 54-35 win in Bozeman back in 2015 and halts the Bobcats' first 4-game rivalry winning streak since the late 1970s. The Grizz take a 5-game winning streak overall into their FCS record 25th playoff appearance, including the second in a row and 9th total under head coach Bobby Howe. Montana State's 9-game winning streak ended with MSU's first loss in Missoula since 2014. The Bobcats will still get a playoff bid and are still in the mix for a first-round bye. For full recap of this game, tune into the Montana Football Hour at 4 p.m. Monday right here on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
As the clock wound down and Cam Humphrey took his final victory kneel for Montana to seal a 29-10 victory over Montana State, the only moment in the sun that offensive linemen ever get occurred as Montana's senior offensive linemen Conlon Beaver, Moses Mallory, and Dylan Cook literally skipped their way down the field at Washington Grizzlies Stadium in anticipation of meeting the truck to hoist the Great Divide Trophy.
I've never seen Big Mo run that fast.
I didn't even know a guy of that size could skip whatsoever, and he definitely did. And that was the scene. As of all songs, Billy Idol's Money Money plays over the loudspeaker. Those are the moments. It's not even that the accentuation of which side you're on. That's what I keep trying to remind people. It's the vividness of the spectacle that's created. And I find great joy when the offensive linemen get to pick up the trophy and carry around the field no matter who wins, because it's the only time that the big boys get to show off what they're all about. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, the Montana Football Hour. My good friend Riley Corcoran joining me, Colter Nuanez, here in studio. If you missed it, big-time victory for Montana, snapping a 4-game losing streak to Montana State and sewing up a top 5 seed in the playoffs. We didn't even get to that part yet, but we talked about the bracket, but we'll analyze the bracket here in the next segment. But here's your draws for the top 8 seeds and the Big Sky Conference. Sam Houston State's the number 1 seed. Number 2 is North Dakota State. Number 3 is James Madison. Number 4, your undefeated Big Sky Conference champion, Sacramento State. Asterisk, I know they didn't play Montana State, Eastern Washington, or Weber, but they did go 8-0 in league play. And they get the 4 seed, Sac State does. Who got the 5? Villanova?
Villanova, and that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, Villanova is sort of controversial, gets the 5. Montana gets the 6. East Tennessee gets the 7, controversial. Montana State gets the 8.
And I do know that Eastern was the 9.
And Eastern gets the 9. First of all, everybody always asks me, how do you feel? What do you think? And here's the things that I root for. When the bracket was coming out, when the seed came out, I saw Grizz 6. I said, great. And then as the 7 came, all I was thinking was I've never rooted so hard for a name to pop up on a screen. It had to be Montana State. I wanted to not have games on Thanksgiving weekend. I wanted to take the weekend off, and there it was. So that was a good thing for everybody in the state of Montana.
It was. And the selection show and the process, which, again, we're going to go through it, there was no surprise to me. The Cats still deserved a seed. There was no doubt about it, but I'm sure some nervous moments down the line. I knew that there were 9 teams for 8 spots. Someone was going to be upset, whether it was East Tennessee State or not. We'll get into that. They're out of the SoCon. They beat Vanderbilt. We know the committee favors those FBS wins against Power 5 schools. That meant enough, at least, to bump a Big Sky school out. I wonder if the narrative was, hey, there's no way we're giving the Big Sky 4 seats. And that would have been a Coulter Nuanez narrative, too. I mean, 5 teams did get in. But when you talk about the draws, no one got an easy one. I think maybe the best team that didn't get a seed is probably South Dakota State. Nobody wants to play them. Well, Davis gets to go to Brookings. Good luck with that. Winner of that gets to go play Sacramento State. Eastern Washington, they have to play a Missouri Valley School, and they have to play in the first round. Cats have to play a hot Missouri State team coming in that thinks they've been slighted all year long, that took Oklahoma State to a 7-point game, and the Grizz probably have the toughest route, having to play Eastern, JMU, Indy, SU. So, again, we'll get into all of that, but certainly was fascinating how the bracket got revealed.
Montana Football Hour presented by Brett's RV and Marine. It's winter fast approaching. Need to winterize your RV, or maybe you want to store it, maybe you want to trade it in. Whatever you need, Brett's RV and Marine can help you get your RV ready for winter. Brett's RV and Marine has been family owned and operated for more than 50 years. Stop by 4800 Grand Creek Road. Start your next adventure with the premier RV dealer in Montana. So much of what makes the rivalry game between Montana and Montana State so great is, as every coach will tell you, every fan will tell you, it's 365 days a year. It's every day, all day, every day. The cliche that you're either a Cat or a Grizz, I don't believe that that's necessarily true. I think that there is an ability to be neither or have positive attachment to both.
For 364 days a year. Not one.
But I always think of this with a Star Wars analogy. There's a force that exists within this rivalry matchup. And the health of the matchup, no matter what, if you're a Grizz fan and you want Montana State to be the worst ever and go 0-11, that's incorrect. That's bad for your program, too. Same thing if you're Montana State. If you want all the worst things in the world to happen in the Grizz program and for them to not exist anymore, which I heard from Bobcat fans throughout the years, that's not what is best for both football teams. What is best for both football teams and universities and for the state of Montana as a whole is what we saw Saturday, not in terms of the action of the game, but the scenarios that existed before, during, and after the game. When both these teams go to the playoffs, no matter win, lose, or draw, that's a tremendous thing. Because that helps mitigate a lot of the instability that's created by the overreaction to this game. If this game is the only thing a team has to play for, or it has too much paramount nature, then all of a sudden that results in the firing of coaching staffs irrationally, and that's bad for the state of football in the state of Montana and in the Big Sky Conference. I think in this game, more than 3 wins in a row is unhealthy for the state of the rivalry. I think that the seesaw is what makes both sides better. It makes ships, like high tides make ships rise, right? Like the better Montana State is, the better it is for Montana. The better Montana is, the better it is for Montana State. I mean, the domination of Montana in this rivalry is why Montana State's so good right now. That's exactly what it is. Montana State had to find a way to keep up with Montana, and they leveled the playing field in terms of facilities and recruiting and all this sort of stuff, at least a little bit more than they had. And so I just think the balance within the rivalry, I know that there's so much emotion on it, and very few people are going to say, Coulter, I 100% agree with you. But I thought what Mike Kramer said on this show last week was so fascinating. He said the phenomenon of sport, particularly the penultimate nature of the result of sport is so unique, fascinating, and also, when you really think about it, strange. It's so hard for us to delineate quality and positivity beyond the end result. The fact that this rivalry exists and that this is providing opportunities for young men across America to be on one of the biggest stages in college football, to learn great values that they will certainly carry on in their lives, and to get wonderful educations from premier state institutions, that's what this is all about. And so then to put all this incredible amount of, I'll call you out right now. I've been on both message boards this last couple weeks.
Oh, that was your first mistake.
I know, but people were insane about this stuff forever. But right now, there's all this stuff on there, just ripping Brent Vigen and his staff to shreds. And it's I get that there was several factors in this game that propelled Montana to a victory. One of which was there's a coach in this game who I believe he tied Don Reed's record for the most times as a head coach in this game. Is that correct?
10 times.
Yep, 10 times. There's only been 2 guys in the history of this rivalry that have coached in this game 10 times. Don Reed and now Bobby Houck. He won the day against Brent Vigen. That's not that crazy. That's not that out of the left field. In fact, it's completely predictable. So there's all this stuff about people calling out, fire this guy, fire that guy. Get a grip, people. Montana State's won 9 or more games 6 times in their football history. It's one of the great seasons the Bobcats have had. And just because it ended like this in the regular season, still a bye in the playoffs, still getting a home game, still have an inside track to make a run. If they can get back right, both mentally and physically, Montana State's absolutely still a contender to go to the Final Four, as they have been all year long.
Yes, there's 125 FCS teams in the country, and these are 2 of the top 8. And one can make the argument that it's 2 of maybe the top 5. That is nothing but a good thing for the state of this rivalry, the state of Montana in general. And you talk about the stage that these guys played on. These games are going to be remembered forever. When these guys that are now 19 and 20 years old, when they're 55, they're going to be talking about, man, that atmosphere in Missoula was crazy.
Yep.
Even the Cat guys, man, we got overwhelmed in that game. Whatever it might be.
No question.
And it's so great to have the national spotlight on this. There were over 90 players in this game. From the state of
91.
Montana. That is so awesome. I mean, on so many different levels, and the overreaction, everybody out there, pump the brakes.
And there's all sorts of things that go into the narrative of this, too, because there's so much history that is created by it. But one thing that I have learned that is a pretty undeniable and pretty consistent defining factor in success in this game is which team has the group of veteran, if not senior players, with the most to play for in terms of their legacy within the scope of this historical event. We saw it in 2019. Both these teams were pretty evenly matched in terms of personnel. Dalton Sneed being hurt was certainly a huge factor for the Grizzlies. And Troy Anderson not playing was certainly a huge factor for the Bobcats. But other than that, Montana State won the day because they had multiple guys from Montana who played outside of their minds and led them to victory. Logan Jones had his best game ever as a Bobcat. Mitch Brott had his best game ever as a Bobcat. Josh Hill had his best game ever as a Bobcat. That happened Saturday, except for the Grizzlies. And then when Jace Lewis starts balling and he blocks this field goal and he gets it to his man, Justin Ford, now it's like everybody's from Montana because you're starting to osmosis is so powerful. You're starting to fuel off the energy. So I think that the fact that Montana played with a certain level of desperation was exactly what they needed. You mentioned just the chip on your shoulder, the underdog mentality, but I thought it was Jace Lewis more than anything willing his team to victory. And it's not just Jace. There's a lot of great leaders on this Montana football team. But, again, I knew everybody asked me what I thought of this. I had really no take on who I thought. I had my Grizz will win if, Bobcats will win if. The first thing that showed me a true and undeniable edge was when Jace Lewis sauntered out of the tunnel on senior day looking like Ray Lewis. At that moment, I was like, oh, man, Montana State's in for it.
And you said one point here just a couple of seconds ago. Who had the most to play for?
Yep.
Well, legacy. This Grizzly senior class did not want to walk out of the door never beating their rival.
Yep.
And that was massive. And when we talk about, and I know that the Cats didn't play in the spring either, so you could say that this narrative is the same for both, but this is where I do go to the coaching change. This group stuck together for this one purpose. It really was that, hey, no more in this rivalry game. We have one more chance at it. We are the more desperate team. We are, quote-unquote, the underdog role. I'm with you. Senior day, normally I don't get wrapped up in senior day. it was tough to get words out because there was just emotion in that building from when Jace Lewis came out of the tunnel. But you're right. Desperation, legacy, who has the most to play for in this game. And make no mistake about it, I know this could be another factor. People go, okay, whatever, you overlooked that. A couple years ago, the Cats were the team with 52 guys in the state. Yep. Grizzlies had about 29 when Bobby was hired.
That's exactly right, 29.
And now, over 50 for Montana.
53 for Montana if you count Robbie Houck.
And
38 for Montana State.
Somewhere in there, there's an X factor. That's all I'm going to. I mean,
I think it's actually a little bit more defined than just somewhere in there. I don't think it's some esoteric, crazy, undefinable thing. I think the fact of the matter is that the backbone of your program, not the stars, not the key playmakers, the backbone of your program is always going to be Montana kids because of all of the romantic ideas that we want to pin on that, but also because of the financial realities of it. The more guys you can get for less scholarship money, the more money you got to go get other guys, the more Justin Fords you can go get too. So the budgeting of the roster is easier when you have more Montana guys, but also, though, they can teach the guys from out of state about the way of life, about the importance and undeniable passion that's behind this game. And I think that, I'm not saying that if you have, I think there's a sweet spot. Because I don't think, per this argument, you would say, oh, if you just go get 99 guys from Montana, you'd win this game every year. That's also not true.
It permeates through the locker room, and it comes really from the top, too. And then you see the senior leadership and all the way down the board. Where, yes, I'm with you, but the Montana, the flavor of who can have the most and understanding what this game means and the passion surrounding it. Again, what do you see when you look at Montana football and the program they have right now? From Bobby Houck to the seniors all the way down to the Montana natives. Passion.
That's right.
They know with all their being, what this meant, and they poured it all out there on the field. I don't think if either team had to play this week, it'd be really hard.
Yep.
For Montana State to try and overcome what happened and for Montana to try and get up again. They poured everything out into this game.
Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. It's the Montana Football Hour presented by Stockman Bank of Montana. Stockman Bank has 36 locations. They're only in Montana, and they plan on keeping it that way. A bank for Montanans by Montanans. Let Stockman Bank show you Montana's brand of banking today. We don't have any post-game sound. That's not a story worth telling on this deal. We will have some later on, probably next week as we get prepped up for the playoffs. No Nuanez now after today. I'm taking the rest of the week off.
Well deserved.
But the one thing that Brent Vegan did say, and I'll paraphrase, this is Montana State's head football coach. He said, this game was not a matter of not wanting it for us. And I actually believe that that's true. I think that there was a lot of different elements that went into Montana owning the emotional level of this game, but I don't think it was for a lack of desire from the Bobcats. If you sat there in the press conference and you saw Troy Anderson speak, the guy wanted it more than you could possibly want something. And sometimes things just don't go your way. And that is actually, I think, what is the most beneficial part of sport. That's what the biggest educational part of sport is. But all that said, I do think that there's ways for one team to win the emotional element of this game without the other team not understand. It doesn't take just what am I trying to say? It's not that Montana State just truly were overlooking this game or anything like that. I think they had all of the desire and passion in the world. Sometimes the momentum within the scope of a game just gets out of hand.
And we felt that kind of early on in the game.
Absolutely.
And yes, it's a trickle-down effect. And that's why, again, all the message board, the keyboard warriors out there and everything in between, this game's under a magnifying glass. Yep. We know that, okay? But at the same time, sports happen. Games, you can't explain certain things that happen in this game. And momentum, I guess when you come down to it, we keep circling back to it. That was the primary X factor in this game, is sometimes momentum, you can't explain certain things. And overreactions, let's keep them under wraps.
Tremendous year for the Big Sky Conference in terms of national prestige. The first time the Big Sky Conference has ever gotten 5 teams into the FCS football playoff bracket. Yet, we got a lot to complain about. Bracket analysis here on Nuanez Now right after this.
Let the feasting begin. Join us at the Montana Club for our annual Thanksgiving celebration featuring succulent oven-roasted turkey or tender, juicy prime rib served with bacon cheddar stuffing, glazed spiced carrots, creamy mashed potatoes, and more. And of course, classic pumpkin pie. We're open 11 to 7 on Thanksgiving and are also serving our full menu. One more thing. Happy Thanksgiving from your Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Colter Nuanez here from your favorite daily sports talk show, Nuanez Now. I know most of you are like me. You keep your precious car outside in this frigid Montana weather. If you want to change your outlook on those freezing Monday mornings, do what I did. Get yourself an automatic car starter at Aspen Sound. Aspen Sound will install the starter for you efficiently and keep you warm. Aspen Sound can also hook you up with sweet window tinting or a top-notch sound system for your vehicle. Stop by Aspen Sound at 1300 West Broadway in Missoula today.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Open your new Stockman Bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then, add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
The NFL is back in full force. Join Colter Nuanez as he presents a variety of top-notch analysis with featured experts like Brooks Nuanez, Ryan Tutel, Rajim Seabrook, Sean Rainey, and more. All football, all the time. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays in the 5 o'clock hour on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula. All football, all the time. Proudly sponsored by Brett's RV and Marine.
This is Colter Nuanez from ESPN Missoula, here to introduce the third rendition of our Grizz Greats podcast series. Over the last few years, ESPN Missoula has presented long-form podcast series with historic interviews from Grizz Greats, the coaching tree, chronicling Judd Heathcote's awesome lineage for the University of Montana men's basketball program, to Grizz Greats, the silver anniversary of the 1995 national champion Grizzlies. This fall, ESPN Missoula is proud to present Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champion Grizzlies. It's been 20 years since Montana last captured a Division I football title, and many men who contributed to that epic run back in 2001 remain memorable figures in the history of the Grizz football program. Please join me, Colter Nuanez, for a 20-part podcast series chronicling the 20th anniversary of Montana's 2001 national championship. Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary, is proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank of Missoula.
Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Smile, I don't want to see you cry. Got some questions that I gotta ask, and I hope you can come up with answers, baby.
Girl, it's easy to love me now. Would you love me if I was down and out? Would you still have love for me, girl?
What's up, Montana? Welcome back. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. I'm Colter Nuanez. We're coming to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Northwest Motorsport, new to Montana, new to Missoula. You can find them here in the Garden City at the corner of Stevens and Mount. You can also check out the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest by visiting nwmsrocks.com. That's nwmsrocks.com. It's the Montana Football Hour. My good friend and voice of the Grizz, Riley Corcoran, joining me, Colter Nuanez, in studio. Montana Football Hour, presented in part by Brett's RV and Marine. Brett's RV and Marine has 75 RV and boat brands to choose from, which gives them the largest inventory under the big sky. Stop by 4800 Grand Creek Road. Start your next adventure with the premier RV dealer in Montana. University of Montana posted a 29-10 victory over Montana State on Saturday in Missoula. With the victory, Montana finishes 9-2 overall, as does Montana State. Four Big Sky Conference teams with at least 9 victories. Sacramento State goes 8-0 in league play after defeating UC Davis 27-7 in the Causeway Classic. That gives Sac State their first ever outright Big Sky championship. So I want to start there just for a moment. I've covered this league for a long time. I believe that there's only 2 schools that have gone undefeated in the Big Sky Conference during the modern era. I count the modern era since 1996, when Idaho, Nevada, and Boise State were all out of the league, and then Portland State and Sacramento State had both joined the league, and the league started playing 8-game conference schedules. But I believe Montana 5 or maybe 6 times, and Eastern Washington 2 or maybe 3 times went undefeated 8-0 in Big Sky Conference play. Now Sac State joins that group.
Weber never did during their runs?
Weber never did. Wow. We lost 1 game in conference play each time. So, and in Montana State, when they went 3 in a row, they were 7-1 each of those years as well. So, I know that we love to bemoan the nature of the unbalanced schedule in the Big Sky. It's easy to do. It's low-hanging fruit. And I know that Sac State did not play Eastern Washington or Montana State or Weber State this year. But that's still incredible that Sacramento State has won 16 of their first 17 games against Big Sky Conference opponents in Troy Taylor's tenure.
What more do you want them to do? As far, I mean, hey, the teams are in front of them and they're winning. And so we get to the bracket too. I had no problem with where Sacramento State was at. Do I wish that everybody could play each other? Yes. Does that demean what Sacramento State did? No.
Right, and they came into Missoula and won, and they also beat a ranked UC Davis team, a top 10 UC Davis team.
They ran them out of the stadium.
Yeah, they ran
in a
them out of the
rivalry
stadium.
game on
Exactly.
the road. I mean,
exactly.
That was very impressive.
So that then results in Sacramento State taking the highest seed out of the Big Sky Conference, the number 4 seed. Sam Houston State, the spring national champion, gets the 1. They're undefeated. North Dakota State, of course, they're at number 2. James Madison is at number 3. And then Sac State 4, Villanova, controversial at number 5. Montana, number 6. East Tennessee, controversial at number 7. And Montana State gets in at number 8. Eastern Washington, basically the 9 seed. They have to host a tough Northern Iowa team in Cheney on Saturday. And UC Davis, after one of the better seasons they've had since moving to Division I, they get the ripe reward of going to Brookings, South Dakota to play the team that, in my opinion, the best team I've seen this year is South Dakota State.
Yes, they were number 1 for half of the year, and after they beat Colorado State, everyone's like, my gosh, it's South Dakota State and everybody else. Well, things happen, injuries throughout the course of the year, but what a tough draw for UC Davis to have to go there. As we dive into this, okay, I had no, and I'm a top 25 voter, so I have followed this throughout the course of the year. The top 4 I had no problems with. If you win your conference championship, as we've seen with even the FBS playoff, that carries a lot of weight. That's fine with me. Sacramento State came in here, won. Didn't matter that Chris Brown was a quarterback or not. But the difference between 5 and 6, when you look at this bracket, is massive. And when you compare Villanova's resume up against Montana's, this isn't sour grapes. You jump in if I'm saying anything that's not logical here, okay? Villanova and Montana had the same record.
Yep.
9 wins. Yep. And those were all Division I wins.
Yep.
Okay, so we're even there. What league was better this year? Big Sky or the CAA?
Big Sky.
The CAA had a record low 2 teams in.
Yep.
Nova and James Madison.
Yep.
Nobody else. So strength of conference, way better. Let's go to the losses. Villanova lost to an FBS team. Okay, that's fine. And they lost to William and Mary, who's unranked. Montana lost to number 4 Sacramento State and number 9 Eastern Washington. Mm-hmm. And then if you still think that it's even, Nova's best win was over JMU. Montana's was over Washington.
Right.
I just can't. I don't want to slam the committee altogether. I just don't understand 5 versus 6. You can't tell me Villanova has a better resume than Montana.
That's right.
And the difference between 5 and 6 is massive when you look at this draw. So it's interesting to me. And then you go to the other side of the coin with East Tennessee State getting the final seed over Eastern Washington. There could be a bone to be picked there, too.
But then I think that the thing that is so striking about the bracket, more than just which seeds were awarded, was who is on what side of the bracket and what draws everybody got. If you're a Montana State follower, I'll tell you this. In my personal opinion, Montana State, with a loss and the 8 seed, got the best draw of any Big Sky Conference team. They get the winner of Tennessee Martin and Missouri State. Now, I know Missouri State has been one of the breakout teams of this year, and Bobby Petrino, who, by the way, over the weekend, we had a couple more Big Sky Conference openings come open with Paul Petrino being let go at Idaho and Rob Fennessy a mere hours before the game let go at Idaho. So, I mean, what just bad form, man. That's just a bad timing. The dude's 1-9. He's going to go 1-10. You can just let him go after the game. What's the point of sending out a press release hours before the game. It just seemed silly to me. But we're going to get into that second hour with Andrew Houghton because he's been on the Idaho State beat these last couple years there in Pocatello. But I know that it's the playoffs now, okay, and so there's no real true easy draws. There's also not nearly the easy draws like there was a couple years ago. Like teams like Austin P and Albany that Montana State beat, they were like borderline top 25 teams. But these are schools that had dormant, non-existent football programs for a long time that had brought football back. So they just don't have the same momentum and tradition.
And you still have a couple of these in here, and I'm going to go on Villanova again. They get the winner of Sacred Heart and Holy Cross.
Hey, I mean, that's just money.
And I understand why this bracket is regionalized, but it delegitimizes the FCS in a big way because of how this is coming out. You can look at it this way. Okay, we have second-round matchup possibilities of UC Davis playing Sac State. Well, they just played last week. North Dakota State is going to play a conference opponent, Southern Illinois or South Dakota. Montana, more than likely, is going to play Eastern Washington. The playoffs are about mixing and matching and for other conferences to play each other. Not to have this just be, okay, at the end of the day, semifinals, you're going to have one Missouri Valley team last, one Big Sky team last, one Colonial team. The regionalization of this delegitimizes the FCS.
Look at the draws for these squads. So Montana State, by the way, they're going to get the winner of Tennessee, Martin, and Missouri State. But they are the 8th. Then if the seedings hold, they'll play Sam Houston State in the quarterfinals. Sam Houston State is the defending spring national champions. They are undefeated, but they come from a league that is significantly less competitive than either the Big Sky or the Missouri Valley. And I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. The lack of newness is also so random. Like, I've been covering this is my 11th year on the Bobcat beat. I've never seen Montana State lose out in the playoffs to anybody besides North Dakota State and Sam Houston State. Not once. They made the playoffs 7 times.
That's wild.
And that's exactly what it's going to be unless, basically this is going to come down to if everything holds. Let's say the Bobcats knocked out Sam Houston, they replace it on that side of the bracket, then they'd likely play either their rival or North Dakota State in the championship, depending on who gets there. But that's way out in front of us.
Oh, man.
But some of these other draws, UC Davis on the road to South Dakota State, okay, they lost their last game, so I don't really know if they have any room to scream and yell. But terrible draw for Sac State. They either get a rematch against their rival who they just beat, or they get the best team in the country that I've seen in South Dakota State. Montana gets a team that beat them earlier this year. That's a bad matchup for them, honestly. But I do think under the lights at Washington Grizzlies Stadium on Friday night is going to be
short week for whoever wins that Eastern.
That's exactly right. That's going to be a daunting task for either Northern Iowa or Eastern Washington. But then you look at the rest of it, and basically, let's say for the Cats to go on a run, you'd have to beat probably an upstart Missouri State team, and then probably the number 1 seed. And then if you get to that point, then you're probably going to have to play South Dakota State, which is going to be an incredibly tough matchup, although it would be ironic because the game would be in Bozeman, even though South Dakota State is better than Montana State. That's crazy. But then you look at the Grizz. If the Grizz are to make a run, they would have to beat the number 4 team in the country in this week's poll, Eastern Washington. They would have to then play the number 3 team in the country in James Madison. Then they'd have to play the number 2 team in the country in North Dakota State. And that's, again, assuming that the seeds hold.
Both of those last 2 on the road.
That's exactly right. So these are really, really tough draws. But want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Want to beat the man, you got to beat the man.
That's exactly right.
Long story short, it's going to be interesting for both of these teams because as big as the regular season was and as big as Saturday was, it really is a clean slate. For Montana State, can you hit the restart button? Can you show that within that locker room you are better than what you were on Saturday? Because if that's the case, for the reasons you just mentioned, they absolutely have the setup to make a run in this thing.
Yep.
And for the Grizzlies, can you stay hungry? Can you play like you did against Montana State? Because if you do, as daunting as that task looks, I guarantee you nobody wants to play that Montana deep. No one's going to be eager to play that Montana defense, hence James Madison, North Dakota State. It's going to be fun, and I love that, again, for the health of this rivalry and everything in between, we have a couple more Montana football hours, man, where we are going to talk both of these teams for the next couple of weeks because they are relevant nationally, and they are 2 of probably 6 or 7 teams that could win the whole thing.
Absolutely. Like I always say, that's my parting thought on the Montana Football Hour presented by Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. One of the best parts about the FCS is that coaching and development and resilience are all part of the narrative of every team's season, because it's very unlikely, even as much as North Dakota State's dominated the last 10 years, they're going to go undefeated. NDSU only has, I believe, 3 undefeated seasons in their 8 national championship seasons. When you lose, not if, but when you lose, the way that moment alters the scope of your season, how your players respond, how you move forward from that moment is so huge. If you treat a loss in a huge rivalry game like Montana State had on Saturday, and you use it as a launching point, you use it as sort of a let's scrap that and let's get back to what helped us win 9 games in a row, it can help you have a resounding performance in your next game, like Montana had back in 2019 when they hung 73 points on Southeastern Louisiana. On the other side of this thing, though, I think it's the exact same dynamic, but in the opposite fashion for Montana. They can't be drunk off the Cat Grizz win. They can't have a hangover from a raucous win that they wanted so much. But if they can parlay that, that could be a launch point as well. So I do think that the way that both of these teams respond from what was an incredibly energetic and passion-filled game on Saturday is the key to each team's success this next month.
And they're going to have a lot of interesting Thanksgiving conversations, too, because there's a lot of time to think about it. And I mean that both in a good way and a bad way, but you are spot on with that. And be great for you because you can hit up a doubleheader. You got a Friday night game here and then a Saturday afternoon game in Bozeman the next day. December football. The only thing that's not cooperating, I looked at the early 10-day forecast. What's up with this 40-degree stuff in December, man? I want snowflakes under the lights December 3rd against Eastern Washington.
Let's get some. I know. We need the weather machine.
For the record, just for entertainment purposes only, what do you think the early line is on UNI and Eastern?
Man. Eastern -7.
2.
Whoa.
Watch out. That's a coin flip game. A lot of people aren't saying that's a coin flip game. Northern Iowa, they can lose to anybody, but they can also beat anybody.
Them nasty on defense. They beat Sac State by 2 touchdowns earlier this year, and they're a team that's been in the playoffs perennially. I know their fans get frustrated with them losing games that maybe they're not supposed to lose during seasons, but they're always competitive in the playoffs. Mark Farley is one of the veteran coaches in the country, so that'll be a good game. The Montana Football Hour presented by Stockman Bank and Brett's RV and Marine. For the voice of the Grizz, Riley Corker, and I'm Colter Nuanez. Keep it right here. More talk on the FCS playoffs, the rivalry game, state championship football. Oh, and by the way, Dane Oliver, the main man from Missoula Sentinel, and his defensive coordinator, Mike Matz, they'll join us in hour number 2 as well. Keep it right here. ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires, introducing the new Backcountry AT2 for a quieter ride with improved performance in wet conditions. Because when it comes to keeping your family safe on the road this winter, the right tires help you feel prepared for anything.
Mom, hey Mom.
Well, almost anything. Plus, save up to $130 when you buy Quatrack tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
The world of real estate is always evolving. That's more true now than ever. If you are a longtime Missoulian that is looking to upgrade or downsize, it might be the best time yet to sell. If you're in the position to buy something new, today might be the best time to buy. And no matter what questions you have when it comes to residential or commercial real estate, Mike Nugent and the professionals at Berkshire Hathaway in Missoula have your answers. To find out what Mike can do for you, give him a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hallelujah. Football is back around the Treasure State. And whether you want to watch high school football on SWX Montana or on the MHSA live stream, or looking to catch the Grizzlies each and every Saturday, or you want to check out all the action when it comes to the NFL, you want to head on down to Paradise Falls. Has 30 big screen TVs, 18 draft beers, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Plus, Paradise Falls has the Sports Bet Montana kiosks so you can make all your bets no matter what football you are watching. Come watch football in Paradise at Paradise Falls, 3621 Brook Street, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Ready, set, shop. Have you looked at the calendar? It's time. Forget high-interest credit cards. Apply for a holiday loan from Farmer State Bank. Holiday loans feature low monthly payments that are easy to budget for. Upon approval, you'll have the cash you need for a holiday to remember. Whether it's online or local shopping, travel, whatever. Call Farmer State Bank for details and apply today. Farmer State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
High school sports are as American as apple pie. And going to a game or meet is a chance to see the stars of tomorrow shine today. But as anybody who's ever attended a high school sporting event in Montana knows, you can't have the stars without the stripes. High schools are currently looking for new officials in almost every sport. Who looks good in stripes? Anybody looking for a way to stay connected to a sport they love. If you like the idea of giving back to your community while earning a few extra bucks, chances are you'd look good in stripes too. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. No officials means no games. No stripes means no stars. And what kind of America would that be? Montana needs more high school officials. Go to highschoolofficials.com to sign up or learn more. That's highschoolofficials.com.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
One rivalry streak ended and another winning streak continued as Montana smashed its rival in Missoula for the first time in close to a decade on Saturday afternoon. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Junior Bergen scored a 74-yard touchdown on the second play of the game, and the Grizzlies were off to the races in the 120th rivalry matchup against Montana State at Washington Grizzlies Stadium. A stadium record 26,856 were ignited as Bergen, a Billings senior product who originally signed with MSU, opened up a contest which turned into a rout. Montana stuffed the Bobcats from start to finish, allowing the number 3 team in the FCS to gain just 204 yards while rolling up 4 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. When Captain Jace Lewis came off the edge and forced a fumble on a fake field goal attempt by MSU, a play that led to Justin Ford scooping and scoring from 56 yards out, it was bedlam in the Garden City as number 7 Montana rolled to a 29-10 victory that certainly vaults the Grizz to a first-round playoff bye. The victory is Montana's first in the rivalry since a 54-35 win in Bozeman back in 2015 and halts the Bobcats' first 4-game rivalry winning streak since the late 1970s. The Grizz take a 5-game winning streak overall into their FCS record 25th playoff appearance, including the second in a row and 9th total under head coach Bobby Howe. Montana State's 9-game winning streak ended with MSU's first loss in Missoula since 2014. The Bobcats will still get a playoff bid and are still in the mix for a first-round bye. For a full recap of this game, tune into the Montana Football Hour at 4 p.m. Monday right here on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
Been player hated. I don't know when, I don't know why. Why they want us faded. I don't know why they hate us. Is it our ladies? Yeah. One drop of faded.
Amazing to think that Puff Daddy was once so young when this song came out. A flashback to the mid-1990s. One of the greatest times there was to be alive. It's a great day to be alive here. Hope you're having a great Monday. It's Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Recapping the biggest football weekend of the year around the Treasure State. Hopefully you got to take in at least a little of the action as there was phenomenal state championship games across the high school world, as well as pretty big rivalry game here in Missoula. Got everything broken down for you on the Montana Football Hour with our good friend Riley Corcoran, the voice of the Grizz. Missed anything in the first hour of the show, you can find it on the podcast, which is available on all of your various podcast hosting platforms. Podcast proudly presented by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, Blackfoot Communications, and Sportsbet Montana. Usually, Mondays, second hour, we got the good man, Coach Marty Morningweg swings by for the Monday afternoon quarterback with Coach Marty. But Marty's a little under the weather. Hopefully he heals up good. He did a great job raising the 37 flag at the game on Saturday. That was cool. And it's been great getting to know him and hanging out with him and learning so much about football with him. So he'll be back next Monday. He's got all sorts of takes from this rivalry weekend that was, as well as some stuff about the NFL as well. But The Monday afternoon quarterback is presented proudly by Brett's RV and Marine, as well as Alpine Touch. And so we're going to spice up this giveaway a little bit here because we are off for the rest of the week. So you want 4 tickets to Montana's men's basketball game? Zootown Classic descends upon Missoula. There's games Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. There's a good field in town for the Grizz. So we got 4 tickets and some Alpine Touch for you. If you call us right now, Wednesday's game, 406-888-1029. You call that number, caller number 2. Got a 4-pack of tickets to Wednesday's game. We'll throw some Alpine Touch in there as well. 406-888-1029. Give us a call right now. You got a chance to win 4 Grizz tickets and some Alpine Touch to the game Wednesday. Zootown Classic here in Missoula, Wednesday through Friday. So hopefully you can swing on by and check it out. And we got tickets all set up for you. Stay tuned. We're going to be giving those tickets away. We got 4-pack to Thursday and a 4-pack to Friday as well. So thanks to Alpine Touch for being the presenting sponsor of the Monday afternoon quarterback with Coach Marty. And can't believe it's basketball season, but go support Travis DeCure and the boys because should be fun action down there at Dahlberg Arena. For those just tuning in or those that missed it, here's the docket from around the state when it comes to the high school football state championships. Missoula Sentinel, back-to-back state champions. They hadn't won one in 48 years. Now they've won 2 in a row. The Spartans dominant in a 35-6 victory over Billings West. Friend of this show, Dane Oliver, is on his way down. Head coach of Missoula Sentinel. He's also bringing his defensive coordinator. Thought Sentinel's defense was outstanding all season long, but particularly Friday night against Billings West. So Sentinel, back-to-back state champions at the Class A level. The Hamilton Bronx, they finally get the job done. This team's been in the semifinals 5 years in a row. They've been to the state championship 3 out of the last 5 years. They lost in both those state championship games, but on Saturday, they go on the road to Laurel to play the defending state champion Locomotives, and they post a 21-7 victory. So congratulations to Bryce Carver and the Hamilton Bronx, the Class A champions for the first time since 1998. In Class B, the Florence Falcons continued their unbelievable run and capped it with a 48-0 victory over Big Fork. So 12-0 for the Florence Falcons, and they bring home a Class B state title to the Bitterroot Valley. In 8-man, it was Thompson Falls that defeated Drummond Phillipsburg. That's the Flint Creek Titans. Thompson Falls won that game 48-7. So congratulations to Thompson Falls, a team that moved down from Class B a few years ago. And then in 6-man, Freud Lake shut out Power Dutton Brady 43-0. So those are your state champions. So congratulations to all of the state champions from across Montana. Dan Oliver just texted me, Missoula Sentinel head coach, so he is on his way down here to help put into perspective what was a phenomenal victory for his Sentinel Spartans on Friday. But we go to the I was going to say the Reagan Spires RV phone line, but instead we're going to go to the production room. Welcome in our producer, Andrew Houghton. And I want to start with something that has nothing to do with the rivalry game. You have covered the Big Sky now for a handful of years now between Skyline Sports and now here at ESPN Missoula as well. And you spent a couple years down there in Pocatello, Idaho, covering Idaho State. Saturday, something happened that I've never seen before. 2 coaches that had been relieved of their duties led their teams against one another. It's rare enough to have a coach coaching in a game in which he is guaranteed that it is last, and it's not because he's retiring. But last week, Idaho announced that Paul Petrino would not return and that Saturday would be his last game. And then just a few hours before kickoff, Idaho State sends out a press release that it was Rob Fennessy's final game at the helm for the Bengals as well. So what do you make of the lame duck bowl as it was?
Well, it's just a weird situation. Of course, it was kind of surreal for me because I didn't know about Rob Fennessy's firing or dismissal until I was sitting in the press box at Washington Grizzly Stadium. And my good friend Madison Guernsey, who's also covered the Idaho State Bengals, was like, man, did you hear about Rob Fennessy getting fired? And I was like, I did not. I had, heard whispers, heard rumors. I think that this was something that was probably coming down the pike because this is a team that came into this season with a lot of expectations and finished at 1-10. But yeah, just what a surreal situation to be in. My take on this is that, man, it's really unfortunate that it sort of takes away and overshadows that game, because for Idaho State, I mean, that game is up there. That's their rivalry game, right? You're finishing the season. You're in-state rival. I don't think there was a lot of hype around that game. I don't think anybody, even the fans of those teams, was up for it too much because they had a combined 4 wins or 5 wins coming into the game. But it still takes away from something that's been a rivalry for a long time, and a rivalry that had a little bit of juice coming back in, because in 3 years, those games have been not good. But the first year, Idaho State ran up 70 points on Idaho. Idaho's first year back in the FCS.
Right.
The next year, Idaho State goes to the Kibbe Dome. Matt Struck throws 2 pick-sixes, a fumble that's returned for a touchdown, one of the craziest games I've ever seen, and Idaho won that game by 30. And then in the spring, it was finally a close one with Idaho State winning. So I think that storyline sort of overshadowed the game. It didn't turn into a very good game anyway. It was 14-0 Idaho. No points scored after the first quarter.
Gross.
Yeah, Idaho went up 14-0. Nothing else happened after that. Utterly forgettable, I guess, if it hadn't been for the weird situations around the coaches. But just interesting.
Here's what's so interesting to me is that Idaho's been back in the Big Sky for a couple of years now. Idaho State has been in the Big Sky since the creation of the conference back in 1963. Idaho State has just had a hell of a time trying to find any realm of competitiveness within the league or any ground to stand on at the FCS level. Idaho once was really good. They have tradition to potentially build upon. But broadly, I just sit here and think to myself, I think the opening at Idaho is one of the best available jobs in the conference and the country for a couple reasons. One, Idaho has good facilities. You can dog on the Kibbe Dome if you want, but it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. And they have a couple elements of it that's very good. I would actually say when Idaho is even respectable, they get fans, and it's a place that people like to go. And they have the one thing I heard from all the Grizz fans that went over to Moscow this year was that it's the easiest place to get beer, which that adds to the experience. When you can just get yourself a beer pretty easy, it makes people want to go more.
And then they have one of the best bands in the conference. They've got that big school feel with the band playing. If there were fans in there, I mean, it would be a great atmosphere.
No question. I also heard some statistics from this new ESPN Plus deal. The leading fan base in terms of ESPN Plus streams for Big Sky Conference games is Montana. Second is not Montana State. They're third. Idaho was second. So there's people that are interested in Idaho football, even if they're not going to the Kibbe Dome anymore. So I think Idaho's a good job. I also think that there's an opportunity for somebody to take that job, and simply because they are not Paul Petrino and his old school way of operating, and a lot of people would say his antiquated way of operating, they have an opportunity to really just reform the identity of what they could be as a program. But then I think about the Idaho State opening, and I don't think any of those things about the Idaho State opening. And that's unfortunate, because I do think that Idaho State does have a fair amount of interest within their program from the fan base, but they've just been stuck in this spot for so long, and I don't really know how they emerge from said spot.
Well, the one thing that the two jobs do have in common is that at Idaho State, you're also just starting with a completely clean slate. Like, there are no expectations for what this team is. And Rob Fennessy tried to do that when he came in and said we're going to be the greatest show on turf and under a dome, and tried to put up 70 points a game. Part worked out as long as they had Tanner Guller. And then
Right. Well, part of this, though, too, is that selling the vision and the marketing, like, love it or hate it, the media portion of this thing is a huge portion of it now, because it's so hyper exposed. There's stuff on social media and online all the time. Paul Petrino, if you use the cliche of winning the press conference, Paul Petrino did not try to win any press conferences over the last several years. Idaho State's had back-to-back guys that did try to win the press conference, and Mike Kramer and Rob Fennessy. So I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, if you just get a charismatic coach in at Idaho, it'll be such a breath of fresh air. They'll have multiple years to instill his vision, regardless if that vision is good or not, because of the ability to sell better than what they had the last couple years. Whereas at Idaho State, they actually had a couple guys that were engaged in the media that were pretty good at selling it.
Yeah.
The vision just fell flat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you would say about Idaho State, I mean, this is sort of the line around Pocatello that you heard repeated all the time. It's that, man, if this team wins, you'd see support. There's some, level of sleeping, not a sleeping giant there with the potential fans coming out, but potentially, a sleeping mid-tier team, right? Like
sure.
if they started winning, that would... they would be above a lot of Big Sky teams in terms of the fan interest, ahead of teams like Portland State and some of the California schools. But, man, it's just been so long. I wonder how much of that potential, which has never been realized in the last 40 years, is fading away.
You want to know what I would do if I was Idaho State? I would start recruiting in Montana. That's what I would do. I would start recruiting Montana kids. And I'm not encouraging this at all. I think there's a great glory to the fact that Montana and Montana State are made up of so many great in-state products that about half the rosters for each of the Montana schools are local kids. I mean, if you read my stuff on Skyline Sports last week, 91 Montana natives in this game. 29 different Montana cities were represented. Our good friend Madison Guernsey, who you mentioned, he came over and helped us. He had a good story after the game about some of the small-town Montana kids like Jace Lewis and Braxton Hill and Garrett Graves for the Grizz and Troy Anderson and Brody Gribby for the Cats. That's part of what adds to the luster. But I just think that the thing that's been standing in Idaho State, the two things that have been standing, there's three things, in fact, that have been standing in Idaho State's way. One, antiquated facilities. Two, a lack of identity in recruiting. And three, no real strategy in terms of recruiting advantages in Pocatello. What I'm saying is that Idaho State's been trying to bring a bunch of guys in that are regionally prominent recruits that then don't have any meshing with the community or the tradition or the history or anything at Idaho State. I just think if you went a completely different... Here, if I was at Idaho State, I would recruit rural Idaho kids, Montana kids, recruit like nothing but regional kids. I would recruit like Bobby Houck does at Montana. Recruit kids that can drive to your games. Because, like it or hate it, you lived in Pocatello. I think Pocatello is cool. I like Pocatello better than most people do. I know you do too. But it's also from a different moment in time. You can find a bunch of guys that like that, though. It just doesn't seem like that's a part of the recruiting strategy as much as it could or should be.
Yeah, Idaho State's in a really interesting place, like just geographically when it comes to recruiting. The place that southeastern Idaho has the most affinity with is Utah. I mean, that's the kids that they need to be recruiting because that's where the culture is most similar, geographically most similar. I mean, you're 2.5 hours away from Salt Lake. I don't actually think that Idaho State, except for being off in a corner by itself, is actually in such a bad place to recruit because there's a lot of talent down in Salt Lake City that you can get.
And Idaho State's a really good school.
Yeah.
That's what people don't realize.
Right.
There's two high research institutions in the Big Sky Conference, Montana State and Idaho State.
Right. And you can, Boise is growing. There's a ton of talent over in Boise. You can recruit those kids. You can recruit up into Montana. Everybody looks at it and says, man, you can't recruit to Idaho State. And I think that's true for like basketball and stuff like that. But for football, there's a lot of talent around there. I mean, and Highland High School in Pocatello,
powerhouse,
one of the best high school football programs in Idaho. They just went to the state championship game again, lost to Rigby, but Rigby is an hour up the road in Idaho Falls. I mean, there's a lot of talent around there. That was the 5A state championship game in Idaho last week.
Yeah, no doubt. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. You want some Grizz tickets? We got 4 tickets to Thursday's game, Montana. It's the Zootown Classic, a Thanksgiving weekend tournament. You want to go to a game on Thanksgiving? You can. Give us a call right now, 406-888-1029. We got 4 tickets to Thursday's action at the Zootown Classic and some Alpine Touch. So call us right now, caller number 2, 406-888-1029. We got tickets to Thursday. We also got some Friday tickets coming at you soon. But if you want to go Thursday night, maybe you're tired of your family, or maybe you're loving your family, want something to do after you digest your turkey, 406-888-1029. Give us a call. Right now, we got a 4-pack of tickets and some Alpine Touch for you to Thursday's games at the Zootown Classic. Dane Oliver, Mike Matz, Missoula Sentinel, they just walked in. They'll join us next here on Nuanez Now. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio.
Fresh ingredients combined with home-style recipes are what we're serving on the Montana Club's Fall Comfort Food Menu. Warm up with the Osso Buco or hearty chicken fried chicken, or savor our hot in the skillet chicken pot pie. Of course, cool days call for yummy desserts. Cap things off with the club's creamy pumpkin skillet a la mode or skillet apple pie. Visit your Montana Club today. Full menu at montanaclub.com. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
For 4 years running, Coach Nuanez and the team at ESPN Missoula have captured the E.B. Craney Award for Radio Sports Coverage of the Year. Each Wednesday on Nuanez Now, the featured long-form interview of the week takes center stage. Tune in to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula or SWX Montana Television to hear the Montana Radio Sportscaster of the Year conduct an in-depth interview with prominent sports figures from around Montana. The ESPN Roundtable during the 5 o'clock hour each Wednesday on Nuanez Now is proudly presented by Paradise Falls.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
About tomorrow, all your guns is borrow. I don't feel sorrow. Actually, your man passed the egg to me. Now check this, what's beef? Beef is when you need two eggs to go to sleep. Beef is when your moms ain't safe up in the streets. Beef is
Happy Monday, everybody. An awesome Monday to be on the air with you. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Maybe we should call this 3 men and 2 mics, because that's what we got going on right now. We got a little mic issue. Somehow one of our mics snapped, but so happy now to welcome in Coach Oliver, Coach Motz from the recently anointed Missoula Sentinel State Champion Spartans, second year in a row. Very fun to have a bunch of state champions here in Western Montana. If you missed the scoreboard, well, the West was best all weekend long. Missoula Sentinel defeated Billings West 35-6 on Friday night, and then Saturday, it was all West all the time. Hamilton took down Laurel 21-7. Florence defeated Big Fork 48-0. Can't believe that was the score in a state championship game. And then Thompson Falls took down Flint Creek 40-8. So a lot of success for teams in the western part of the state. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. We'll start with you, Coach Oliver. How you feeling? Because I know that this is, as they say in sports, the only thing harder than winning a championship is repeating as champions. So how does it feel to be sitting here now, back-to-back state titles?
It's still pretty surreal. You know, we just finished my least favorite day as a head coach, gear turn in. So in a matter of 72 hours, you go from the pinnacle to back. Just, you know, it's not all glory. There's a little bit of a grind there.
That's right.
What I tell my daughters. So, but yeah, unbelievable performance by the Spartans. Not a don't go to into a game with any expectation how it's going to go. But that was a pretty special night for the city of Missoula. And then the Saturday game, Brawl of the Wild being in town. It was a fun weekend of football. So just trying to, Coach Delaney said enjoy those wins. You hear from a lot of people when you win, and so just trying to enjoy this moment.
When you're sitting there playing the first state championship game in Missoula since 1994, you're leading 15-6 to halftime, and then you dial up an onside kick. How do you have the guts to do that in that moment? I mean, that was like, we were like freaking out on the sidelines. I cannot believe they just did that.
Yeah, it's full disclosure. It's just it's a squib kick that we say, kick it right at that guy. So it's so it's not as gutsy as everybody makes it out to be. But I think the ball bounced our way, and I don't know whether that's, like I've said, execution or the hard work ethic by these kids or just the game of football. It was our night, and so the mentality going in was let's go for it. I thought that showed off in the defensive game plan. It showed up in special teams, and then especially just on fourth down. Just we're not holding back on this game, and it paid off.
And Mike, this was a completely redefined way that Sentinel won down the stretch this year. You guys were very good across the board, but this was an unbelievable defensive unit. So first, start with the onside kick, because as the defensive coordinator, what do you think? I mean, I know, like you said, a little bit of a squib, okay, whatever, but seemed like you guys had faith in your defense no matter where the offense had the ball on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the week, we kind of discussed that, with those dollar guys back there.
Right.
You kind of understand that either we're going to kick it to them and have a chance of giving up a big return, or we got to play this field position battle, and having played them twice, the beginning of the year in the championship game last year, I kind of had it in my head that they were going to be getting the ball around either plus 40, minus 40 the whole time. So kind of getting used to that, just knowing that they're going to have good field position, and preaching to the kids that, like, this is where they're going to be, but we're built to stop them. We know we can do it, and then just kind of trying to get that mentality into the week that it's okay wherever they get the ball, we're good.
Well, I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to watch football for a living, so I become sort of a junkie when it comes to schematics and stuff like that. First of all, I got to give you a great compliment. What you guys are doing is very complex and complicated for high school stuff, and I think it's awesome to watch. But how would you just describe the way you put your kids in a position to succeed? Because it seemed like they really gravitated toward all the details that you guys want them to operate with.
Well, you going into that game, you got to stop the run game, and a team that hits big plays from anywhere on the field. So that was kind of our message. We stopped the run first, and then you got to take away Taco Dollar, which is not an easy thing.
Easier said than done, right?
And so that's kind of been the formula is we want to shut the run down and then take away their best passing threat. And so our kids gravitate. They love that. And so they were all in. They know how good he is. I mean, if you watch the week one game, he torched us a couple of times and made us look silly. So for those guys, those DBs especially, they took that serious, and to see them go out and have such success, and I think he had 2 catches for 8 yards, which is crazy to look back on, because he is an outstanding player.
I mean, he's one of the best players in the state of Montana, no question.
One of the most dynamic kids I've seen.
Yep.
So for our DBs to have that success, and our D-line was getting after it and helped them out. So it was just super cool, and I'm so proud of those guys.
Absolutely. Missoula Sentinel, the state champions for the second year in a row after experiencing a 48-year drought between state championships. Head coach Dan Oliver, defensive coordinator Mike Motz, in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. It is Nuanez now. The turning point of this game, though, other than the squib / onside, whatever we want to call it, was, first of all, you capitalize on that moment. Easton Ledbetter with a house call to give you a little breathing room. But to me, the whole game turned when Billings West went for it on fourth down. They didn't get it. You guys get the stop, and then you guys are facing a short fourth down, and Zach Cruz lowers his shoulder, gets yourself a first down. That turns into a touchdown drive, and now it's all Spartan. So what did you think of your kids' ability to seize the moment in that exact scenario?
Yeah, I think we're just the stewards of their mentality.
Totally.
That was their approach. They wanted to do this. That's the like I've mentioned earlier. It's the greatest team with a competitive spirit that we've been around.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the type of kids we have.
Is that just intrinsic? Are they just made like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we've been pretty fortunate. Yep.
Because
now it's something we breed and talk about, and we do a lot of mental training. But,
sure.
And that allows what we've had some special kids. What they've been able to do is bring along those kids who wasn't intrinsic, and so the trickle down of Zach Cruz, Charlie Kurgan, Joe White, Chase Williams. The list could go on. Those are your A+ players, but that when you have great, amazing players like that, it brings your C players to B players, and that's high school football, I believe, because you're always going to have those elite level players.
One thing that drives me kind of crazy about the FBS level of college football is that it's what makes every regular season game so big, but when you lose, it sort of derails every goal you might have had. So one loss, it can sort of alter the entire scope of your season. That's why I love other levels of football, because so often how you respond when you lose is so important. That said, you guys haven't lost in years. That's so hard. How are you guys able to keep the kids focused? Because it's, like you always say, I'm not in the business of making predictions when it comes to 16, 17-year-old kids, because you never know. You never know when you ate too much at Applebee's before the football game or whatever. You're not hydrated. Your girlfriend picked a fight with you at school. You never know what's going to happen with this sort of stuff. So how are you able to keep these kids focused? Because 21 wins in a row is an amazing number.
Yeah. What I'd say is, you got to have great players, which we do. You have to have amazing assistant coaches.
Right.
And fortunately, we have some, especially on the defensive side of the ball, we've got Coach Mott's got a great team around him. Coach Dennison, Coach Prangen. There's some other young guys coming up helping them. And I had some turnover on the offensive side of the ball, but by the end of the year, those guys were locked in. So how you do it is you just don't talk about it.
Right.
It's a conscious thing we do. We go into every game. We don't have an expectation how it's going to go. We tell the kids, don't look at the scoreboard. We're chasing excellence, not an outcome. And that's the formula that worked for this team. It may be a different formula next year. So I think I'm fortunate to have some great people around me to help figure out that formula. But what worked for this team was just present moment focus. And they're such great competitors that allowed them to thrive.
And Coach Botts, you're a Billings West alum, and you guys have a little bit of a rivalry going on with West. You mentioned state championship game rematch this year, so 2 state championships in a row. You also played them the first game of the year at Washington Grizz to start this season off. So what was your emotions going into this game? Is it weird for you coaching against your high school alma mater?
It was weirder last year, kind of being the first time.
Right.
That's a program that's super special to me. I had an awesome experience there. Played for a legendary guy in Coach Claybo.
You probably learned a ton from Coach Claybo too, right?
Yeah. And Coach Stanton followed my class freshman all the way up, so I spent a ton of time with him. Have a ton of love and respect for Coach Stanton. So it was really cool, especially to go down there and win it at Dalis. Was really cool last year. And then I think, you play them number 2 and number 3, and it just kind of becomes another football game. A program that I care about. I think if I could pick who you play in the state championship, it would be pretty awesome to play them. I always wish them success and want them to do well. So it was pretty cool to be able to play them again.
Well, and just take us through just some of the guys you had defensively, because it seemed like this was probably a pretty special group to coach, not just athletically, but it seems like these guys can absorb so much mentally. So what did you think of just the performance defensively? Because you guys, quite frankly, gave up almost no points for the last 6 weeks of the season.
Those kids are so locked in, and it starts with Chase Williams. He's probably the smartest dude we've probably ever had.
Yep.
At Sentinel, perfect score in the SATs, an Ivy League guy. He watches almost as much film as Coach Oliver and I do. And so he's just as locked in as any coach on the staff. And so he really is kind of the thing that makes this thing tick. And then you have guys like Charlie Kurgan and Zach Cruz, Drew Clump, Connor McCarthy. I could just all 11, really the 14 guys that we rotate in. They're just locked into the game plan. They want to do well, and they're really bought into what we're doing. So it's easy when you have kids like that. You can lay it out on a Monday, and then they execute it perfectly. A lot of the time, they know what they do wrong before we can even get after them. So it makes it pretty easy for us.
And Dane, what did you think was there any I'm sure there's always challenges. What were the biggest challenges you guys experienced this year?
Oh boy, we had plenty. It was interesting. They asked me that after the game. I said, this team had more adversity than people know.
Sure.
And what are those things? Well, we had some coach illnesses that kept us out, and we lost a starter 4 weeks in a row. At one point, we had 5 offensive starters down, and so it just you could go on and on. We go down to Butte, and Coach Mott's was not feeling well, and so you just have to be extra careful. And he's upstairs in the booth. It's just every day it seemed like in the post-COVID era, there's something to deal with. And I talked with Coach Stan about that, just the resiliency of all the kids across the state. It's pretty amazing. just to see how they do. They adapt quickly, and it's a fun group to coach.
I mean, I said this at the beginning of the show, too, because I think that last week, Mike Kramer, former Montana State head coach, came on the show, and he's coached football for decades and decades. And he so eloquently described the phenomenon of the way that we analyze and think about sports being so based on wins and losses, and sometimes we lose so much of the value that comes beyond any sort of actual result. And that's something that's going to stick with me forever, the way he explained that so well, because there is so much benefit from it no matter what. And oftentimes when you lose, it's actually the biggest benefit as well. And when I was standing on the center of the field, as you guys celebrate, it's just such this dichotomy of emotion, right? Yeah. Such elation for Sentinel. What a spectacular moment for these kids. Such devastation for Billings West. And you felt so bad for him. You know, I went and said, what's up to Taco Dallard, because he came on the show earlier this week. I said, thanks for coming on, man. I know this is so disappointing. I promise this will be something you learn from more than anything in your whole life. So let's talk about West, though. I mean, because that's if you're going to have a great team like you guys have, you'd love to have a great opponent challenging you each and every day, right?
Yeah, it's a challenge there. You know, I have a lot of empathy for like
no question, right?
Because we've been there. It's not, you know, and that's why it's when you're having the success we are, you want to enjoy it.
Yep,
you really do. But, you know, it's a great book. Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book. I recommend it. It's the art of running downhill, and it's like, well, things are going really well for us. Like, why are these happening to you? It's because it's all the failures that happen to you. So enjoy that ability to just run downhill. And so that's kind of, you know, the self-talk I'm giving myself right now is just enjoy these things, because you know it's not going to last forever. It's tough to stay on top. And but in West High is such a formidable opponent. They have a kid going to the Naval Academy. The list could go on and on.
Multiple D1 guys.
They're very similar to how we were last year, and so I just can only imagine the thinkings like, hey, we couldn't get it done with this crew. You know, it's tough. It's hard to win football games, and that's why we're so grateful and fortunate to be in the position we're at.
So much of the narrative coming into this year was you guys had such a phenomenal team a year ago that won your first state title in 48 years, and all sorts of guys going to all sorts of colleges to play. But this group embraced and exceeded all expectation, and the fact that they handled the bullseye on their backs from start to finish. I mean, what makes this team unique? What will you remember about this team the most?
Yeah, it's. I think with time comes greater reflection on what makes them so unique. You're still kind of, you know, I'm still processing everything.
Right.
What I saw, maybe I'll speak to what I was most proud of.
Yeah.
How well the seniors brought along the juniors and sophomores. Yeah. It's amazing to see a group of people come together. When we started this season, we were not completely aligned. There was a lot of different issues. And so just for their ability to sacrifice and put their individual needs aside for the greater team success was what was most special. That's what I'll remember about this crew, was they really did become a team by the end of the year. It was a different process than last year's team. And so it's just more tools for the toolbox on how to get people to work together.
It's a similar question for you, Coach Botts. What are the defining factors? I mean, what are the things that will resonate with you the most when you think about this group of kids?
You know, I think they're extremely gritty. Like,
yes.
You know, I go back to week one, and you know, it's things that cliche things that coaches always say. You know, it's third down, third and goal. Wes has got an opportunity to win it, and I go out in the huddle and I look at all the guys, and I look at Zach Cruz, I look at JJ Dolan, and I just have this like sense of calm. Like they're going to win. Like, they just believe they're going to win. And I told them, like, hey, we're good. This is where we want to be. And I don't know if I actually felt that, right? But I said that, and they looked at me like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I think, like, the moment's never too big. Like, they trust their training, all the stuff they do in the summer, and we're always preaching that to them. But then in those tight moments when maybe I'm doubting it a little bit, to look at those guys and see that they're 100% confident, they believe, hey, we're one play away. That's something that I was always so impressed with, and that showed up in the first Glacier game and early on the Helen High game, and just to see them just consistently just keep playing the next play, knowing that they're going to get back in it or a big play is coming, just to watch them put that to work every Friday was pretty awesome.
Nuanez now ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Mike Motts, Dane Oliver from Missoula Sentinel joining me, Colter Nuanez in studio. It's a holiday weekend. You want to go watch the Grizz play some hoops? Grizz are hosting a holiday classic tournament, the Zootown Classic, the first rendition of it. We got a 4-pack of tickets for you to Friday's game. We also got some Alpine Touch we'll throw in there as well. Alpine Touch, Montana Special Spice. You want to go to the game Friday? We can't tell you who they're playing because it's a tournament, so we don't know. But we have a 4-pack of tickets for you. So call us right now, 406-888-1029, 888-1029. Call us right now. Caller number 2 got 4 tickets for you to the Grizz basketball game Friday night. Last question for you guys, because this was a big-time rivalry weekend. We'll start with you, Coach Moss, because I think that there's a lot of people listening to the show that are very, they love high school football, but they also love college football too. There's a lot of intrigued people with number 11 from Missoula Sentinel, Zach Cruz. I know he's slated to play a variety of different positions, or I guess I should say he could play a variety of different positions. Sounds like they're going to start him out on the edge like he was playing for you guys at defensive end, but what makes this kid special? What can Grizz fans anticipate out of a guy that's committed to Montana?
You know, there's so many things with Cruzy, but for me, and I think Coach O echoed this, that kid's competitive spirit.
Unbelievable.
There's just, not that we don't have other kids like that, but he's just at a different level. And then you see that, you know, we give up a touchdown, he blocks the PAT, and like that was his 3rd or 4th PAT block of the year.
Right.
So he just is consistent all the time, and then you just know you can bet on that kid all the time.
No question.
You know, like when we go,
he just wants to win.
On 4th and 2, we talk about it in coaches' meetings, like what's our approach going to be on 4th down, and he asks for input, and it's always like we're going to bet on 11 if it's
That's right.
4 or less. Like give him the ball. So I think you're going to get, Grizz fans are going to get a kid that is going to lay it on the line every single time he's on the field. And I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be a really, really good player at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's been a great contributor on this show, too. It's been fun getting to know him. He has such an elevated maturity for such a young guy. I mean, he comes in here, he sounds like he's a 30-year-old coach when he's on the radio. Got a little edge to him as well. So pretty special. Last thing for you, Coach. Rivalry weekend here. You are a former Grizz player. You must be pretty happy to see Montana snap the streak against Montana State.
Yeah, I was so just impressed. I'm a fan of football, and
absolutely.
There's a couple kids that are dear to my heart who play for the Cats. So
Totally.
you're a little torn at times, but I was number one. It's tough to win at Washington Grizz.
Buddy.
And so it's just it was fun to see. We call it WeFence, which is offense, defense, special teams, all working together. And I think that's a brand of football that lends them to make a run. When you and we're proof of that. Like all 3 phases have got to be hitting at all cylinders. And so you're starting to see him get healthy. I love watching Mitch Roberts play football. I mean, his hands. I don't know if people know how special his ball catching abilities
Catches
are.
everything.
But he does it with. When most receivers would catch it with the body, that kid goes with his mitts. So it's fun to see kids like that perform, and it was fun to watch Riley Nort be on the field. I know it didn't get the result he wanted, but it's great. It's rewarding for us to watch those kids go on and live out their dreams.
Missoula Sentinels, Dane Oliver and Mike Motz. Thanks so much for being here, guys. This was great.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
One last thing to take you home for the week, because we're off for the rest of the week. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio. Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community, and they want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. When it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan, Holloway, and Miller today. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller, your Montana attorneys.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires, introducing the new Backcountry AT2 for a quieter ride with improved performance in wet conditions. Because when it comes to keeping your family safe on the road this winter, the right tires help you feel prepared for anything.
Mom, hey Mom.
Well, almost anything. Plus, save up to $130 when you buy Quatrac tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
The biggest shopping of the year is right now during Bob Ward's amazing sales for Black Friday. Get in early from November 18th through the 23rd during our pre-Black Friday sale. It's like Black Friday for 6 straight days at Bob Ward's. We've extended our shopping hours and stocked the store with winter gear, apparel, hunting, fishing, camping, athletics, and more. Plus, we offer curbside pickup and online shopping with in-store pickup. Amazing sales for pre-Black Friday at Bob Ward's from November 18th through the 23rd. Bob Ward's, Sports and Outdoors, a Black Friday shopping tradition.
Why build a work history at a job when you can build a future in your own business? Westpac Wealth Partners is looking for entrepreneurial-minded people who are ready to take their future into their own hands. Nick Tabor and his associates provide clients with financial tools and tested solutions for navigating this complex financial climate. Westpac Wealth also has a work culture that has been recognized as a best workplace in Fortune magazine. If you're ready to start building a business in a long-term career, apply at westpacwealth.com. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC.
Like most Montanans, we love a good steak. And because we're the Montana Club, we take the steaks we serve very seriously. We're confident to say that our custom grilled steaks are as good a steak as you're going to get. Now we're proud to add regularly sourced, naturally raised Castle Rock bison ribeye to our selection. And remember, the Montana Club steak entrees include the sides. Come into the Montana Club today for an unrivaled steak experience. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's producer Tommy from Nuanez Now. Did you know you don't even need a radio to listen to Nuanez Now? You can watch Nuanez Now all around the state of Montana on SWX television, channel 199 on Charter or 23.3 on terrestrial television. Plus, you can stream every minute of Nuanez Now live on YouTube. Tune into the stream on 1029ESPN.com or find ESPN Missoula on the TuneIn Radio app. 4 to 6 weekdays on 1029 ESPN Radio.
It's Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
No. Why you looking at your boys and little girl standing here? Little do they know. You over there looking at me. Your girl standing here. Roll harder than why you over there. Some of your niggas. My girl standing here.
What a day. I don't know if this is the best or worst one-day work week of my life, but this is the only Nuanez Now for the week. Miss anything in this show? Montana Football Hour with Riley Corcoran recapping the rivalry game and breaking down the FCS playoff bracket. And then a true pleasure to hear from Dana Oliver and Mike Motz, the two integral coaches in Missoula Sentinel's second consecutive state championship. All that on the Nuanez Now podcast. We'll be back next Monday. We'll see you in a week. Have a great Thanksgiving. Hey, it's Colter Nuanez from Nuanez Now here with Brent Wahlberg of the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate. It's a complicated real estate market right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge?
This is a real